Hi, this is Sajjad, welcoming you to this video of Nuke Learning. Particle nodes deal with Nuke's built-in particle system, often used for creating effects like fog, smoke, rain, snow, and explosions. The Particle Blink script node is similar to the Blink script node, running Foundry's Blink framework. It enables us to write our code once and run it on any supported device. This is achieved through code translation, in which the Blink code is turned into specific code for each target device. With Particle Bounce, you can make your particles appear to bounce off a 3D shape instead of traveling through it. The Particle Cache node allows you to store the geometry simulation for a particle system to file. It can then be read back in different sessions of Nuke or on different machines without the need for recalculation. With Particle Curve, you can apply a curve to particle properties to change them over time. Use particle directional force to apply a directional force, rather like gravity, to your particles. With particle drag, you can apply drag on your particles to gradually alter their velocity over time. This means particles will start off fast and gradually slow down, unless you use negative values to apply the reverse effect. Particle Emitter is the only required node for creating particles, but with no geometry input, the normal along which particles travel is the y-axis. Once you've connected a viewer and your geometry, click play on the timeline to see the default set of particles emitting from your geometry. With Particle Expression, you can adjust your particles by setting expressions on their attributes. Using expressions gives you a vast variety of ways of adjusting the way your particles behave. With Particle Gravity, you can apply gravity to your particles. Unlike our familiar gravity, particle gravity works in any or all of the X, Y, and Z directions, and you can also set negative values to them. The Particle Info node displays particle data from any particle system attached to the node's input, which is useful for troubleshooting if your particles aren't behaving correctly. With Particle Lookat, you can determine a 3D point at which all the particles within a certain region are looking toward. If you have more than one set of particle nodes and you want to combine them into one stream, Particle Merge is your node. Attach your particle streams to Particle Merge's numbered inputs and you're all set. You can add Particle Motion Align in your particle stream to realign all the particles along their direction of motion. With Particle Point Force, you can attract or repel particles to or from a certain point in the 3D space. You can use an animated or still axis expression linked to the position value, or a value you have chosen to enter manually. Use the steps per frame control in the Particle Settings control panel to adjust how many steps of particle simulation take place per animation frame. If you're looking to have your existing particles emit even more particles, you should turn to Particle Spawn. This node emits particles from existing particles. Particle Speed Limit restricts particles to a specified minimum and maximum speed. With Particle to Geo, you can control particles in a simulation bi-channel, giving you the ability to isolate certain particles at any point in the node graph. Particle Turbulence applies noise to the particle movement, dispersing the particles in the X, Y, and Z directions. Particle Vortex applies a circular force to the particles and attracts them to an imaginary line, thus creating a whirlpool of particles. With Particle Wind, you can simulate a wind blowing on the particles. Deep nodes deal with deep image compositing, where each pixel can have multiple values. This is a color-correct node for deep compositing. It applies the color correction to all samples at each pixel. You can use the Deep Crop node to crop deep data in front of or behind certain planes in depth, or crop deep images inside or outside of the crop box in the viewer. The Deep Expression node allows you to apply complex mathematical formula to deep data using expressions. The Deep From Frames node copies multiple input frames from a regular 2D image to samples in a single deep frame. Using Deep from Image, you can convert a standard 2D image to a deep image with a single sample for each pixel at the depth defined by the depth.z channel. Deep Merge merges samples from multiple deep images so that each output pixel contains all of the samples from the same pixel in each input. You can also use it to hold out samples in the B input that are occluded by samples in the A input or plus overlapping samples from the A and B inputs. The Deep Read node loads deep images from disk. Deep Recolor merges a standard 2D image and a deep image file that only contains opacity for each sample. Deep Reformat is the reformat node for deep data. You can use it to set your deep image's dimensions, scale, and so on. Deep Sample. Use this node to sample any given pixel in a deep image. Move the POS indicator over pixels in the viewer to produce deep sample information in the Deep Sample Control panel. Deep to Image. You can use this node to flatten a deep image. In other words, merge all the samples in a deep image into a regular 2D image. Deep to Points. You can use this node to transform the deep pixel samples into points in 3D space that you can see in Nuke's 3D view like a point cloud. This node is useful for position reference. Deep Transform. You can use this node to reposition deep data. It allows you to translate the samples along the X, Y, and Z axes and scale the sample's Z depth values. Deep Write. This node renders the result of all upstream deep nodes and saves the result to disk.